Why Saturn is the scariest planet. It's not peaceful. 4:16 a.m. The alarm is not a siren. It is a vibration in your teeth. Your headset crackles with static, then turns into a low animal moan. The sound crawls through the hull like something alive. Your stomach drops before your brain understands why. Outside the forward window, Saturn fills half the sky. It looks serene from this distance. Pale gold, soft bands, perfect rings. A religious icon hanging in black space. Then the instruments spike again. Radiation counters chatter. The magnetometer needles slam like they are trying to escape. Listen to the audio feed. It is not music. It is the planet talking through charged particles. It is a voice made of plasma and pressure. It is what happens when a giant's magnetic field scrapes against the solar wind. It sounds like screaming, because your mind needs a word. You came here expecting emptiness. You came here expecting beauty. You came here expecting a quiet science mission. You are wrong on all three counts. Because Saturn is not peaceful. Saturn is a violent machine that never shuts off. And if you drift too close, it does not welcome you. It processes you. So ask yourself something simple while the comms degrade and the hull ticks with thermal stress. Where will you be when the most beautiful planet in the sky decides you are debris? In that instant, the old idea of space ends. A new, harder one begins. The trigger is small on paper. A minor course correction. A thruster pulse that lasts 3 seconds too long. A single digit in a navigation packet flipped by radiation. Your ship's guidance computer accepts it because the checksum still looks clean. The new trajectory intersects the outer ring plane at a shallow angle. The bridge is calm at first. People speak in clipped, professional sentences. The tone used in submarines and missile silos. Calm is a protocol. Calm is how humans hide fear from each other. You watch the crew stare at numbers because numbers feel like control. Then the information gap opens like a wound. Ground control does not answer, not immediately. The light delay is long out here. Your messages leave your ship at the speed of light and still arrive late. You say, "We have a navigation anomaly," and the void says nothing back. Inside mission control, there is panic you will never hear. Officers pull up contingency binders. Engineers run simulations that do not converge. Someone uses the phrase unrecoverable ring intercept in a room that goes silent. They do not tell you yet. They do not want to say the word that changes everything. Your ship keeps falling, not down but inward. Saturn's gravity is a polite liar. It feels gentle until it isn't. It is a deep well with smooth walls. You do not notice the slope until you cannot climb. The planet's rotation complicates everything. Saturn spins fast, fast enough to flatten itself. That bulge changes gravity gradients across your hull. Tiny differences in pull become torque. Torque becomes attitude drift. Attitude drift becomes antenna misalignment. Antenna misalignment becomes isolation. You try to correct with reaction wheels. The wheels whine. The whine becomes a tremor. The tremor becomes a warning light. Bearings heat. Lubricants thin in vacuum conditions. One wheel saturates and locks. Your ship begins to slowly roll like a dying animal. Now the rings stop being jewelry. They become geography. They become weather. A particulate environment moving at orbital velocity. You can picture them as a disk. You should picture them as a freeway made of knives. The first impacts are microscopic. They sound like rain on a metal roof. You feel them through the frame, a soft tap-tap that grows steadier. These are grains. Dust, tiny ice shards. At these speeds, dust is not dust. It is a bullet. Sensors register pitting on thermal tiles. A tiny puncture in a coolant line. The line freezes instantly. A valve sticks half open. Pressure drops in a loop. The ship compensates automatically because automation is comfort. But automation is also denial. Then you hit the first real fragment. It is the size of a fist. The collision does not rock the whole ship. It does something worse. It makes one side suddenly hotter because the insulation is gone. The structure begins to warp with differential expansion. The hull makes a slow, ugly creak. You call it damage because you are trained to be technical. Your body calls it injury. Your skin itches under the suit collar. Your mouth tastes like copper. Stress hormones flood you in waves. Your hands are steady only because your gloves hide the shake. The public back on Earth knows nothing. They are asleep, or they are scrolling, or they are watching edited highlights of Saturn's rings with gentle piano music. They are being sold peace because peace sells. Meanwhile, your ship is learning what the rings really are. Saturn's magnetosphere is the second trap. It is not empty space. It is a battlefield of charged particles. It is a radiation belt that does not care about your shielding margins. Your dosimeter climbs in small steps, like a clock counting down. You move into a region where the particle flux spikes without warning. Your electronics begin to misbehave. A camera goes blind. A star tracker loses lock because the stars drown in noise. Your navigation filter starts rejecting valid readings as outliers. The computer becomes paranoid. In the confusion, a crew member suggests a hard reboot. It is a normal fix in normal environments. Out here, it is a gamble with your life. You do it anyway because you need hope. Hope is sometimes just a button you press. The screen goes dark. For 3 seconds, there is nothing but the hum of fans and your own breathing. Then the system comes back, but a few parameters are wrong. A timestamp is off. A calibration table is corrupted. You do not notice immediately. You cannot notice immediately. The human brain has limited bandwidth. Now the real breakdown begins. It starts with the small conveniences that keep you feeling civilized. The galley heater fails. Your water recycler throws an error. The toilet vacuum pump stutters, then stops. Hygiene becomes a logistical problem. Morale starts leaking out of the crew like air through a seal. On the communications panel, the signal-to-noise ratio drops. The high-gain antenna cannot stabilize due to attitude drift. You switch to the medium gain. Data rate collapses. Telemetry becomes a trickle. Mission control stops being a voice and becomes a delayed text message. The delay is psychological torture. You ask a question. You wait. You receive an answer to who you were 15 minutes ago. Decisions become ghosts. You start talking to the ship like it is a stubborn animal. You start bargaining with physics. Outside, the ring particles get denser. Your forward radar paints a smear. It cannot resolve individual objects fast enough. The cloud is too complex, too dynamic, too indifferent. A field of moving hazards with no lanes, no rules, no mercy. The first major system failure is power. not total, not yet. It is a slow strangulation. Impacts degrade solar array surfaces. Attitude errors reduce optimal pointing. A battery cell overheats, then disconnects. Your power budget becomes a constant argument. When power becomes scarce, you start turning off parts of yourself. That is what it feels like. You shut down heaters in non-critical compartments. The temperature drops. Condensation forms where it shouldn't. Ice builds on connectors. A smell of cold metal fills the air. You ration oxygen scrubbers not because oxygen is low, but because the fans that move air cost watts. You can breathe, but the air becomes stale. Carbon dioxide creeps up by fractions. Fractions matter. Fractions make you dull. Dull people make fatal mistakes. This is the moment civilization dies in miniature. Not with fire, but with budgeting. Not with screams, but with checklists. The future turns into a spreadsheet with a countdown. Somebody laughs at a bad joke. It sounds wrong, thin, and sharp. Somebody else snaps, because laughter feels like disrespect. The crew dynamics shift. You stop being colleagues. You become survivors sharing a sealed box. Then the radio emission rises again. A low-frequency roar that bleeds into every channel. It is like listening to a storm through a wall. The sound is not in space. It is in your electronics, but your brain does not care. It interprets it as a predator. You look at Saturn's North Pole on the external cam feed. The view is stabilized for a moment. The hexagon is visible, crisp, and unreal. A geometric scar in a world of fluid chaos. It looks like a symbol carved into the atmosphere. It looks like intention. The crew argues about what it means. Some speak like scientists. Some speak like frightened primates. The truth is simpler. It means the planet's atmosphere can lock into patterns that do not drift. It means Saturn can hold a storm in place for years. It means this machine has stable modes of violence. Another message arrives from Earth, clinical, the kind of sentence designed to survive a legal review. Prepare for contingency trajectory options. Contingency means you are no longer on the primary plan. Contingency means the plan is dying. You run the numbers. There is a window to boost out of the ring plane, but it costs propellant. Propellant is life. Propellant is also your only negotiating chip with gravity. Your tanks are not full. They were never meant to be full this deep into the mission. You fire the thrusters anyway. The ship shudders. A vibration runs through the frame. For a moment, you feel control return. Then a pressure sensor shows a leak. A line has cracked from impact stress. Fuel is venting in a thin, invisible stream. Now every second burns two ways. You burn propellant to escape. You lose propellant because the ship is injured. You are bleeding velocity into Saturn's well. Phase 2 spreads outward, like contagion. The ship's internal network begins dropping packets. A bus error appears on the propulsion controller. Redundant systems take over, but redundancy is not immortality. Redundancy is time. Time is what Saturn steals. It steals it with light delay. It steals it with orbital mechanics. It steals it with the simple fact that rescue is not a helicopter ride. Rescue is a years-long political decision. Back on Earth, leaders hold secure calls. They speak about budget and blame. They speak about whether to risk a follow-up mission. They speak in the language of committees while you spin in a ring storm. You will never hear those words, but you will feel their weight. because geopolitics reaches even here. Saturn is not just a planet, it is a prestige project. A flag planted in math. If you die, someone loses funding. Someone loses elections. Someone loses face. And face makes nations do irrational things. A decision is made to keep the public calm. They will not announce the emergency yet. They will call it a communications anomaly. They will show old images of Saturn's rings, bright and clean. They will sell serenity while you count impacts. That is the civilian ignorance layer. It is thick, it is soft. It is lethal, because when the truth finally arrives, it will arrive too late for anyone to process it gently. Inside your ship, the shift from civilized to primal is not dramatic. It is incremental. It is the moment someone hides a protein bar in a pocket. It is the moment someone double-checks the door latch to their sleeping compartment. It is the moment you realize trust is also a resource. The ship drifts closer to the densest ring bands. The particle impacts become constant. The hull sounds like it is being sandblasted. The external camera feed cuts in and out, speckled with noise and momentary white flashes from radiation hits. An alarm sounds for a micrometeoroid penetration. The sealant phone deploys automatically in a cargo bay. It expands and hardens like blood clotting. The bay is now dead space. You lose storage, you lose options, you lose comfort. A crew member reports a metallic smell. That is a bad sign. That can mean overheated electronics. That can mean arcing. That can mean insulation burning in low oxygen conditions. Fire in a spacecraft is not fire. It is a chemical war inside a coffin. You isolate circuits. You shut down the affected rack. The smell fades. The temperature in that section drops. You add another cold spot to the ship's map. The ship becomes a patchwork of habitable zones and frozen darkness. Then the biggest hit comes. It is not a mountain. It is the size of a refrigerator. That is enough. It strikes a radiator panel and tears it away. You do not see it happen at first. You only see the thermal system go unstable. Coolant temperature rises. The ship cannot dump heat. Electronics begin to cook. You start shutting down non-essential systems again, but now non-essential means anything that is not keeping you breathing. Silence follows. Not true silence, but the reduction of machine noise. Fans slow. Pumps stop. The ship sounds more like a tune. In that quiet you hear your own body. The swallow, the heartbeat, the tremor in your breath. This is the sensory beat that breaks people, because chaos is easier when it is loud. Loud chaos feels external. Quiet crisis feels internal. Quiet crisis feels like guilt. Phase 3 begins before anyone names it. The new normal is formed by constraints. Power is low. Heat is trapped. Communications are delayed. The ship is wounded. Gravity is constant. The rings are everywhere. You establish rationing, not just food and water. You ration speech. You ration arguments. You ration hope, because too much hope becomes recklessness. Too little hope becomes collapse. You assign sleep shifts because exhaustion kills faster than hunger. The schedule feels military now. It is not because you want discipline. It is because discipline is the last tool you have. Outside, Saturn's atmosphere turns, banded, and hypnotic. The storms are not decorations. They are engines. Convection carries heat from the interior. Lightning flashes deep inside clouds you cannot penetrate with eyes. Each flash is energy you cannot imagine on Earth. You remember why Saturn is scary. It is not a monster with teeth. It is a system with scale. Scale turns harmless things into weapons. Ice becomes shrapnel. Magnetism becomes radiation. Gravity becomes a shredder. You receive another message from Earth. This one is longer, more honest. It says the odds of a clean escape are low. It says you should prioritize data transmission. It says the mission may end in atmospheric entry. The words are careful, but the meaning is a funeral. At this point, information becomes poison disguised as clarity, because clarity does not save you. Clarity only tells you how you die. The human brain resists that. It tries to reinterpret. It tries to find loopholes. You decide to send everything. Every sensor reading, every thermal log, every radiation spike. Not because it will save you, but because it is a form of revenge. If Saturn takes you, you will at least make it expensive. Your transmitter struggles. The antenna wobbles. You patch together bursts when the attitude aligns. You pray to geometry. You become a believer in timing. Back on Earth, security agencies begin drafting statements. They coordinate with partner nations. They plan how to frame the loss. They plan memorial footage. They plan scholarships. They plan a narrative that turns your fear into inspiration. None of that reaches you. Out here, the narrative is the whole temperature and the oxygen partial pressure. Out here, meaning is whether the next impact hits a pressure vessel. A crew member breaks down. Not theatrically. Quietly. They stop talking. They stare at the window. They stop eating. Depression in a spacecraft is not sadness. It is operational failure. You respond like a survival expert. You assign them tasks. Simple ones. Repetitive ones. Humans need agency. Agency is oxygen for the mind. You keep them moving because stillness is where the void speaks loudest. The ship slips out of the densest ring band for a moment. The impacts lessen. You feel relief, and that relief is dangerous. Relief makes you sloppy. Relief makes you imagine survival. Then Saturn reminds you what it is. A gravity gradient increases as you approach the planet proper. The ship begins to experience tidal forces. Not enough to tear you apart instantly, but enough to strain joints and seals. Bolts flex, panels groan. The outer atmosphere becomes visible as a thin haze, a soft edge on the planet's limb. It looks delicate. It is not. It is a column of gas that gets denser until it becomes a crushing ocean. Your thermal system is damaged. Entry heating will be lethal. Even a grazing pass will roast your hull. You calculate error brake options anyway, because desperate brains love cleverness. The numbers do not like you back. Geopolitically, there is another layer. Your mission carries experimental encryption. It carries classified communications hardware. Not because Saturn needs secrecy, but because funding comes from defense budgets too. Now there is a fear on Earth, not just of losing you, of losing sensitive tech into Saturn's gravity forever. A meeting happens in a secure room. Someone proposes a remote destruct command, a kill switch, an engineered suicide to sanitize the hardware. The debate is tense. Ethics are discussed. Optics are discussed. The final decision is delayed, because delaying decisions is what bureaucracies do best. Out here, you do not know that conversation is happening. You do not know you may be judged as a security risk instead of a person. You just know the ship is failing, and the planet is getting bigger.